I let him stay over, but what occurred next was beyond surprising. Hey Reddit, throwaway account, because there's no way I'm surviving the group chat if my friends connect the dots. So, I, 28F, let my friend, well, sort of X, sort of not, Alex stay over last weekend. This wasn't some rom-com setup. He was coming back from a late work trip, his apartment was being fumigated, and I have a couch and the kind of snacks you buy when you expect company, but not romance. We've always been complicated. One of those friendships that's dipped into maybe more territory, but always pulls back before anything real happens. Anyway, I wasn't expecting anything dramatic. Alex is the guy who double-checks the oven, alphabetizes his vinyl collection, and once apologized for sneezing too loudly in a cafe. The plan? He'd crash on the couch, we'd eat bad takeout, maybe watch an episode of something mindless, then pass out. Nothing risky, nothing exciting. There were hints, though, that the night might get weird. He texted 3 times to confirm it was really okay. He brought a duffel bag that looked way too big for one night. And when he arrived, he was jumpy, kept glancing at his phone, pacing the living room, and nearly dropped the pad thai everywhere when my cat hissed at him. But hey, we all have weird days. I chalked it up to travel stress, poured us both a drink, and did my best, let's keep it casual routine. Alex, meanwhile, kept fidgeting with his phone and avoiding eye contact. There was definitely something up, but I figured he'd tell me eventually. Or maybe he just needed sleep. Spoiler, sleep was not on the agenda. The first hint of trouble came just after midnight, when my doorbell rang. And that, dear Reddit, is when things went from meh to I'm never judging my neighbors again. I froze mid-bite of a cold spring roll, staring at Alex. The doorbell rang again, a long, insistent buzz that sent my cat sprinting under the couch. Alex turned white. Were you expecting anyone? He whispered, voice way too serious for leftover takeout. I shook my head. Who even rings doorbells after midnight? My building isn't exactly party central. If you hear noise, it's usually my upstairs neighbor doing laundry at 2 a.m., not surprise guests. Alex was already halfway off the couch, peeking around the corner like we were in some kind of spy movie. Can you check who it is? He mouthed. I crept to the peephole, expecting to see maybe a lost delivery guy or a neighbor with a broken pipe. Instead, there was a woman I'd never seen before, wrapped in a huge coat, clutching her phone and looking furious? Or desperate? I couldn't tell. She's not one of my friends, I whispered to Alex, who looked like he might bolt for the fire escape. Do you know her? He hesitated a split second too long. Maybe. I think that's, my ex Claire. My jaw dropped. She tracked you here? He nodded, sheepish, eyes darting to the door like it might bite him. We broke up months ago. I didn't tell her where I was staying tonight. At least, I don't think I did. The bell rang again, then pounding. Alex, I know you're in there, she yelled. My heart hammered in my chest. I wasn't sure if I was more freaked out for Alex, for myself, or for the fact that suddenly, my very ordinary Friday night had turned into an accidental episode of reality TV. Alex glanced at me, pleading. What do we do? At that point, I realized this was not going to be a crash on the couch and forget it kind of night. I had a choice. Open the door and let chaos in, or hide out and pretend I wasn't home. Guess which one I picked? Against my better judgment, and after about 5 seconds of frantic whisper arguing with Alex, I opened the door. Claire nearly fell inside, cheeks flushed, hair wild, breathless with a mix of anger and relief. There you are, she snapped, glaring past me straight at Alex. I stood awkwardly, suddenly wishing I'd worn literally anything but cat pajamas. Hi, can I help you? Claire ignored me, her eyes locked on Alex. You blocked me on everything. I had to guess where you were. I saw your Venmo to her. She jerked her chin at me, for couch snacks. Seriously, Alex? Alex looked like he wanted to dissolve into the furniture. Claire, you can't just show up here. We broke up. Please, let's not do this. It was the first time I'd ever seen him this rattled. I glanced between them, feeling like I'd accidentally wandered into a private play I didn't audition for. My brain scrambled for an exit line, but all I managed was, anyone want tea? No one wanted tea. Instead, Claire plopped onto the edge of my rug and burst into tears. You just left, she sobbed. No explanation, no goodbye. I thought we meant something. Alex finally found his words. Claire, you cheated on me. Twice. You lied for months. I didn't know you a monologue. The silence that followed was thunderous. Even my cat poked her head out, sensing the drama. I was torn between sympathy for Claire's heartbreak and shock at her invasion. Alex's eyes were pleading with me. Help, or at least a distraction. Claire just sat there, crying and muttering about closure and betrayal. It hit me then that I'd let someone into my home, expecting an uneventful night, and instead, I was the unwilling host of someone else's breakup finale. The night was spinning out of my control, and somehow, I was right in the eye of the storm. So there we were, me in my ridiculous pajamas, Alex pale and silent, Claire sniffling dramatically on my rug. The tension was so thick you could slice it with my takeout chopsticks. For a moment, nobody spoke. My brain did that awkward panic scroll. How do you comfort a stranger who's ambushed your apartment at midnight? I decided to play Switzerland. Claire, can I get you some water? She shrugged, hugging her knees. I fetched a glass, mostly to buy time, and to text my best friend under the table. SOS. My couch is now the set of The Bachelor, Breakdown Edition. When I came back, Alex was standing by the window. Claire was scrolling her phone, and my cat was glaring at all of us. I handed Claire the water, trying to sound sane. Look, maybe we can just talk this out? Quietly. The neighbors are nosy. That seemed to snap Claire back to reality. She wiped her eyes and managed a shaky laugh. Sorry. I had to see you. I thought maybe you were hiding something. Or someone. Her eyes flicked pointedly to me. Alex rolled his eyes. I'm not. We're not. Thanks, dude. Now it sounds suspicious. He turned to me. Sorry. None of this is your fault. I didn't want to drag you into my mess. I shrugged, trying to be brave. Well, you did. So now what? There was a long pause before Claire asked, almost sheepishly. Did you read my emails? I blinked. No. Why would I? Alex frowned, then started pacing. What emails? Claire looked at her phone, biting her lip. I sent you a goodbye letter. And something else. You should check. She looked at me again, eyes suddenly less angry, more lost. I'm sorry I crashed your night. I just needed to know the truth. I felt a twinge of empathy beneath my annoyance. Clearly, this was bigger than a random midnight visit. And for the first time, I wondered, what exactly was Alex hiding? Alex sighed, pulling out his phone, his hands shaking just enough for me to notice. I didn't get any emails, he muttered, scrolling with his thumb. Claire watched, arms wrapped around herself. I felt like a referee at a sport I didn't know the rules to. A few tense moments passed. Alex's brows knit together. Wait. Here, goodbye from Claire. He opened it, voice reading aloud almost by accident. I know I broke your trust. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I never stopped caring. If you can forgive me, please meet me. He trailed off, looking at Claire. Meet you where? She shook her head, tears brimming again. It doesn't matter now. I thought maybe if I just saw you, I'd get some closure. But it was stupid. You moved on, obviously. I felt a weird pang at that. Not because I was with Alex, but because heartbreak has a way of making you root for everyone to heal. None of this is stupid, I said, softer than I meant to. Just messy. Alex finally looked at me, vulnerable for the first time that night. I didn't tell you about Claire because I was embarrassed. I thought I was over it, but when she showed up, I realized I'm not. At least, not fully. Claire gave a hollow laugh. Story of my life. For a minute, we sat in silence, three people tangled in a web of old love, regret, and too much honesty. I could see, finally, that Alex hadn't just been running from an ex. He was running from unresolved pain. Claire wasn't just a drama queen. She was lost, just like the rest of us. It wasn't the kind of confrontation I'd pictured. There was no yelling, no grand finale. Just three tired people, realizing that sometimes closure isn't neat or easy. Sometimes, you have to sit in the mess and decide where to go next. Eventually, Claire stood up, looking a little steadier. I should go, she said, voice quiet but clearer. I'm sorry for barging in, really. I didn't want to make things worse. Alex hesitated. Do you want me to call you a cab? Or should I walk you out? She shook her head, offering a small, sad smile. I'll be fine. You both deserve some peace tonight. She gave me a quick, apologetic glance, part gratitude, part embarrassment. Thank you for not slamming the door in my face. I hope you never have to do this for anyone else. I almost laughed. Because what else do you do at the end of a soap opera in your own living room? Claire gathered her things, and Alex walked her to the door. Their goodbye was short, awkward, and full of things they didn't say. When the door clicked shut behind her, the apartment felt oddly larger, like it had exhaled. Alex leaned against the door, running a hand through his hair. Well, so much for a quiet night, huh? I managed to grin. You sure know how to make things memorable. We both slumped on the couch, silent for a long moment. The city was quiet outside. My cat finally emerged, making a beeline for Alex's lap. Go figure. I asked, you okay? He nodded. I think so. Maybe not great, but better. He looked at me, earnest. I'm sorry I dragged you into my drama. I should have warned you. I just didn't want to seem like a mess. I shrugged. Everyone's a mess sometimes. You just picked a night with a good audience. We laughed, a little forced, a little real. I realized I needed boundaries, and Alex needed closure. And suddenly, the idea of just letting him crash didn't feel simple at all. We sat there in the aftermath, half laughing, half exhausted. Alex rubbed his eyes. I really owe you. I was so focused on not being a burden, I made myself into an even bigger one. He tried to smile, but his face was tired. I waved him off. Look, you didn't choose this. But next time, full disclosure on any exes who might know my address, okay? He grinned, really grinned, for the first time that night. Deal. I'll even give you a background check on my next +1. It felt lighter then, like we'd peeled back a layer of pretense neither of us needed. I could admit that I'd let him stay over partly out of curiosity, partly out of habit, and partly because, maybe, I hoped our complicated thing would get less complicated if we just spent more time together. Instead, it got messy, and weirdly, I was grateful for it. Alex reached for the remote. Do you think we could still catch the end of that movie? I snorted. Only if you promise not to invite any more surprise guests. He held up his hands in surrender. Scout's honor. We watched the rest of the movie in a sleepy, comfortable silence, the kind that only comes after you've been through some kind of emotional earthquake with someone. No confessions, no declarations, just an easy truce. My cat curled up between us as if to say, finally. As we shut off the lights, I realized we'd crossed a line that night, not into romance, but into something much more honest. I'd learned that letting someone stay over means accepting the unpredictable. And Alex learned that even messes can have a soft landing, if you trust the person sitting next to you. When I woke up, the apartment was quiet, sun leaking around the curtains. I half expected to find Alex gone, but he was still there, curled up on the couch, my cat sprawled across his legs like a little guard. I made coffee and tried to piece together my feelings, mostly relief, a touch of embarrassment, and, surprisingly, a hint of hope. Alex wandered into the kitchen, hair wild, sheepish grin on his face. Hey, sorry again about, well, everything. I handed him a mug. Honestly, I've hosted worse. But next time, I'm charging an emotional support fee. He laughed. Fair enough. I'll pay in takeout and cat toys. There was no awkwardness, just a gentler understanding. We talked about Claire, about boundaries, about how life never goes according to script. Alex admitted he'd blocked a lot out, tried to move on too fast. I admitted I tend to rescue people as a way to avoid my own mess. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. He thanked me again, really thanked me, and promised not to drag me into any more late-night ex-drama. I told him he was welcome back anytime, as long as we both remembered the new rules. When he finally left, the place felt peaceful. The chaos was over, but so was something else, the pressure to pretend. I felt lighter, and I could tell he did too. Sometimes, you let someone stay over and they wreck your night. Sometimes, they wreck your comfort zone in just the right way. A few days passed. Life slipped back to its usual pace, but something between Alex and me had shifted. Our texts were a little more honest, our jokes a little sharper. No more tiptoeing around what we meant to each other, or pretending that we weren't both a little scared of real connection. Claire didn't show up again, thank goodness. Alex kept his promise. Next time he crashed on my couch, he brought extra cat treats and warned me ahead of time about a late work call. We set boundaries, actually talked about what friends meant, and, for the first time, I felt like I could say no or yes without overthinking every word. I realized the wild, uncomfortable night forced us to level up, not just as friends, but as grown-ups. We could face the messy stuff, laugh about it, and move forward. We even found a weird pride in how dramatic our not-quite relationship had been. Honestly, it made for great stories and better trust. Letting Alex stay over hadn't led to romance or disaster. It had led to something harder, real honesty, with all its rough edges. We learned that sometimes beyond surprising means you find out what your boundaries really are, and that the right people will respect them, even if it takes a detour through chaos to get there. So, Reddit, what started as a simple favor turned into a night I'll never forget. I let a friend, okay, sort of ex, crash on my couch and ended up hosting his ex's dramatic midnight meltdown, finding my own limits, and having the most honest conversation I've had in years. Here's what I learned. Letting someone into your space, literally or emotionally, means you can't control what they bring with them. Sometimes it's baggage, sometimes it's chaos, but if you're lucky, you come out the other side with stronger boundaries and a better friendship. Would I recommend letting someone stay over if you have even the slightest weird feeling? Trust your gut, always. Set expectations, don't be afraid to ask questions, and remember, just one night can be a lot more than you expect. But if you're willing to face the mess, you might just find a little more honesty in them and in yourself. Thanks for reading my saga, Reddit. And if you hear your doorbell at midnight, maybe check the peephole twice.